Anita, our team at ABC have been supporting Tamar Crossings during the consultation. So over the next hour, we'll start with the presentation and then we'll move to questions and answers. You can add a question during the presentation by posting in the Q&A. I'd now like to hand over to Philip to get us underway.
Thank you very much, Avril. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you taking time to log on and join the webinar in our first week of the consultation. My name is Philip Robinson. I'm the Chief Officer of Tamar Crossings, and I've been in post now a little over 6 months. You're going to have to listen to a short presentation, I'm afraid, and during which I hope to answer some of the questions we've already had posed of the consultation. But there will be plenty of time at the end to address some of those questions and hopefully for some of you to add any supplementary questions you may have. So what we're going to cover, hopefully the technology works, is a quick overview, look at some past and future investments, and then really get into the meat of the presentation around budget challenges and some of the options we're considering at the moment. And then at the end, we will let you know how you can get involved further. The consultation is running for a number of weeks, and we'll address some of those questions and answers. I think you heard the voice there, but please note this meeting is being recorded. So first of all, those of you who are locals will know that residents, businesses alike have been crossing the Tamar River for many centuries. As far as Tor Point is concerned, 1791 was the first ferry, and at Saltash even going further back to the 11th century during the Norman Conquest. But jumping forward a couple of hundred years, it was in 1950 that Plymouth City Council and Cornwall decided to form a joint authority partnership to create the bridge across the Tamar, as well as at the time acquire the possession of the Tor Point ferry. And in 1961, after 2 years of construction, the bridge was opened to the public. Jump forward to 2026, 65 years later, the bridge now sees over 16 million vehicles crossing annually, and the ferry over 3 million vehicles and 400 pedestrians. And of course, they're both open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Just to put that into context, the M48-7 bridge handles, I think, in the region of 80,000 a day collectively, the M48 specifically around 32,000, and we're dealing with 4,000 vehicles a day, just to put that into some sort of context. I think it's worth also just spending a bit of time explaining how decisions are made within the Tamar Crossings organisations. We, as an officer-led group, report to a joint committee. The joint committee is made up of 10 councillors, 2 of whom, one from each authority, form the co-chair. The joint committee, in turn, makes recommendations to the parent authorities, and that's Plymouth City Council and Cornwall Council. So we don't make any decisions. We make recommendations to the joint authority, to the joint committee, and likewise they make recommendations to each parent authority's cabinets that ultimately then get passed through full council. It would be wrong not to talk about some of our past investments. In early 2000, the strengthening and widening of the Tamar Bridge cost us £35 million. We replaced the Tor Point ferries in 2005 and updated the slipway at a cost of £19 million. The toll plaza refurbishment and the electronic toll collection was £4.5 million. And the Tamar Bridge office building replaced the shipping containers that our staff were previously working from, providing a safe and more sustainable work environment fitted with energy-saving fixtures. And then finally, the Bridging the Tamar Learning Centre celebrates and preserves the heritage of the crossing. Now, the reason I mention all of these investments is that these were all self-funding. There was no money provided whatsoever from government. And of course, we want to invest in the future as well. We receive a lot of feedback about our current tolling system, and we want to move to open road tolling. That, in simple terms, means automatic number plate recognition to allow free-flowing traffic both west and east. We've currently got some stakeholders looking at that and assessing how we might develop a scheme over the next couple of years, and also the costs associated with implementing it. It doesn't come cheap, and current figures, we're probably looking at between 10 and 15 million. But I think it's something we need to invest in. We're one of the few crossings now that has a tolling system as we do, and it will increase the traffic flow and make it a better experience for all those involved. We're also updating our IPMS, which is a integrated platform management system software. This is a networked computer system which is used on ships and submarines that provides real-time monitoring and control of machinery on all the ferries. And we're working with Rolls-Royce to update the old system, which is no longer fit for purpose. And finally, we're working on a research project looking at a proof of concept, considering with Marine Zero, looking at all the options for decarbonising of the ferries by 2034. And those are options that we will hopefully get to look at in the next couple of months. Excuse me. So what about our budget challenges and how we cut our costs? Well, your toll and administration fee currently pay for 110 staff at the ferry and the bridge, operating 2 services 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And the bridge was only closed recently for, I think, no more than about half an hour during those storms. So we have a good record of keeping traffic moving across the Tamar, whatever the weather. We, of course, have essential maintenance and safety to carry out. And you'll see from the diagram on this particular slide that the staff costs and maintenance make up much of our outgoings as an organisation. And we continue to look at major improvement works to protect the crossings for future generations. The current bridge has, when it was built in 1961, a lifespan of 120 years. I'd like to think we can extend that by carrying out the essential maintenance and the proper improvements as time goes on. Likewise with the ferries, they have a lifespan to 2030, but I'm confident with the right scheduling of maintenance and upgrades that those ferries can be extended out to 2035. So spending now will save in the long term. Let's remind ourselves that this consultation is about the Tamar Tag scheme. When I came into the post 6 months ago, the first thing I did was look at the budget. I wanted to understand what we were paying for, what income we had, and where we could make some potential savings. It was clear to me at the time that the cost, the administration cost for the tag did not cover the scheme itself. And I think it was good financial practice to be clear on where our costs and expenditure lay. I'm not going to read these out. These are available and will be available for you to view during the course of the consultation. But suffice to say, there is an ongoing process to look at all of these costs. Postage, for instance, might be considered a bit of a low-hanging fruit. It's a big number, 63, nearly 64,000. But all of those costs are being looked at in detail to make sure that the total cost of running this scheme is as efficient and as small as we possibly can make it. At the moment, the 80p a month that you pay, for those of you who are on the tag, generates about £460,000 of income. An increase to £2 a month will generate close to that figure of 1.1 million. I've talked about staffing. Maintenance is our next biggest cost, if you like, and I believe we are right to invest to save in carrying out the correct maintenance schedules. Of course, We're guided by the Health and Safety Executive and the Maritime and Coastal Agency, who oversee the work we do. But regular specialised inspections of the bridge and ferries is critical to me. And we also have a duty to monitor CCTV and traffic management, as well as update our environmental and health and safety requirements. Major essential improvement works to ensure the bridge and ferries can cope with the increased traffic, which continues to increase. It will be one of my priorities moving forward. I've said this before, but unlike many transport services, such as the Severn Bridge, we do not receive any regular funding from government or from either parent authority, nor is there any provision in either parent authority in their medium-term financial plans to include any revenue support for this undertaking. Our costs continue to rise due to inflation, higher maintenance and safety requirements, and the need, as I've discussed earlier, to invest in infrastructure that is beginning to show its age. We will continue to ask central government for help towards our running costs, and we have reached a point where our reserves, which are forecast to run out in 28-29, even with the cost savings that we are currently looking to make. We are required as an organisation to maintain a prudent reserve of 3 million to address any unforeseen costs, but we've already dipped into that, and I think our reserve currently stands at maybe a little over 1 million. So what am I doing to reduce costs? So since I've arrived, I've conducted a thorough review of all our budgets, all our budget lines, and all costs. Staffing levels have been reviewed and rationalised where possible, and our terms and conditions for all staff contracts are currently under review to better manage overtime and contracted hours. I'm also in the process of going through all our service contracts and looking at where we might shave off some of our costs in some of those areas. I mentioned postage costs. That's something we're looking at. And by the time the consultation is reviewed, we'll be in a position to take a recommendation back to the Joint Committee in June. And I should also add that running costs of the Learning Centre have been reduced by 50%. So what are my options? Not many. The recommendation that I took to the Joint Committee on the 5th of December was to increase the administration fee from 80p to £2. This allowed me to protect the 50% Tamar discount and the service levels of the crossings. That is now out for consultation, as you're aware, and should it be rejected, then my alternative options are to freeze the fee and look to increase the toll. I have to send a request to government for that. Freeze the fee and reduce the tag discounts from 50% to 40%, or continue to increase the toll in line with inflation, something that we're looking to do. Or I could look at applying an admin fee to each tag rather than each account, but I fear that will not generate the levels of income we need to keep the organisation in the credit. And I need to make it clear that doing nothing is simply not an option. I can't just sit on our budget and say, we'll just wait till the money runs out, because there is no provision in either local authority to fund the crossings, which is why it's not been included in the survey. So how can you get involved? I would urge you all, and anybody you know who uses a crossing on a regular basis or an infrequent basis, to complete the feedback survey online by April the 6th. A link's available on our website at tamarcrossings.org. Please come in to one of our drop-in sessions and chat to us about any proposals you may have. We will be running a number of sessions, and I'm keen to reach out to all those users of the bridge and the ferry to hear what you have to say and any ideas you might have. The purpose of this consultation is to provide transparency on our financial challenges. It's an opportunity for you to share your views on the next steps, but we do not take changes lightly, and we want to be open and transparent, but as to why we believe this proposal is necessary. So thank you very much for your time. I said I wouldn't be more than 20 minutes, and I think that was about 15. So it was a fairly quick rattle through. I know we've got some questions that have already been sent in, but I'm fairly confident we'll have time for some further questions at the end. So Avril, I'll hand back to you at this point, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Philip. Anita Craig here with Avril Baker. So we're going to run through the questions that we received from the sign-up forms and tackle those first, and then see how we do. I know that we've had some questions that have been submitted quite late through this afternoon, which we may not get time to cover in the webinar. But any questions that we don't have time for today, we will respond to after the event, just to give you that reassurance. So thank you very much for submitting your questions. Philip, the first question that I'd like to ask you to respond to is, someone is asking, what percentage of the crossings are undertaken by tag account holders?
As we stand today, the current percentage is 61%. Of those crossings are undertaken by tag account holders. So 61% make use of the discount. Thank
you. Someone else has asked, when will the increases end? They seem to be happening on an annual basis. Those who have tags have already been hit with the increases in the toll.
Yes, I can understand why any increase in any cost of living needs to be scrutinised. We are subjected to inflation just as anyone else. You've heard about some of the things we need to do to keep the maintenance schedules going, to ensure that we preserve the bridge and the ferry for as long as we can, so that we don't have to replace the bridge. I should have said earlier, to replace the bridge, we're talking about 220 million, and I think it cost 1.6 million to build, so it gives you some idea. Inflation is a thing, and so I do expect costs to increase from time to time in line with inflation. But what I'm doing now, I believe, is the least difficult decision in terms of increasing costs to keep ourselves with a minimum reserve. So they will continue the cost will continue to rise, but hopefully at in line with inflation and at a more manageable rate. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. The next question, and I believe you touched on this in your presentation, why is it that the Huge 7 crossing is free and yet the Tamar crossing costs so much?
I think we get the Severn Bridge question quite a lot, and it's one of a few crossings that are free because it's funded by government. We receive no government fundings. But I think it's worth pointing out at this stage, there are 13 toll crossings in the UK. I include M6 toll, Tyne tunnels, Dartford crossing, Mersey crossing, Gateway. These are all more expensive than our crossings, and they range from £1.20 to, I think, £10.50 each way. We're charging you, if you've got a tag, £1.50 each way at the moment. So, I wish I could have some of that government funding, but I don't, and that's why. It's this, when it was built, was one of the longest crossings in the UK, if not the longest crossing. The Severn Bridge, which was built some years later, then became the longest crossing. But the maintenance and upkeep of the bridge is not too dissimilar.
Thank you. The next question is in relation to the revenue that you get from both the bridge and the ferry. So how much revenue does each of the following generate, the Tamar Bridge and the ferry crossing? And then what are the operational costs?
So I probably worth pointing out at this point that all our finances are a matter of public record, and they can be viewed if anybody wants to go through our finances. But just as a headline figure, based on 24-25 figures, The bridge revenue through the toll was 14.2 million, and the ferry revenue for the same year, 24-25, was 1.6 million. Operational costs for the bridge. This is where it's slightly sort of paradoxical. Even though it generates more income, the operational costs are cheaper at 5.8 million. The ferry operational costs are 6.7 million, but you've got 3 very heavy maritime vessels operating, fairly aging vessels operating 24/7. So it's perhaps understandable that their maintenance is higher.
Thank you. Interestingly, someone has actually asked whether it's considered the possibility of charging more for the ferry, and that I should highlight is a question within the survey itself as well. Can you offer any insight into that?
I'd like to see what the people of Tor Point would have on that, what they would like to say on that. We've no intention of differentiating between the ferry and the bridge. There's not more I could really add at this point.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, it's okay.
The next question, can there be a concession for locals who use it all the time?
Yeah, we've looked at this over the years. So whilst I've been doing this job for 6 months, I've actually been working alongside through Plymouth City Council with the Tamar crossings for the last 7 or 8 years, and this question comes up. I think first of all you need to be able to determine what is a local. Where do you start and stop that boundary? And that would be difficult to enforce. The second thing I would say is that all 3 local MPs, all the 3 MPs associated with the ferry and the bridge, have acknowledged that the Tamar Tag is the mechanism to deliver cheaper tolls for local people. So if you live in further afield, Manchester, Newcastle, you're unlikely to have a tag because you're paying that monthly administration fee. So we will continue to look at ways we might introduce that, but at the moment, I'm not able to consider offering a further discount than locals currently get through the tax scheme.
Thank you. The next question. When the Tamar Bridge was built, the public were informed that there would be no fee charge for crossing the River Tamar from Devon into Cornwall, and residents would be allowed access from Penrose Road and Normandy Way before this road was closed off.
Yeah, you'll get a chance to read our Mythbusters at some point. I'm not sure whether they're on the website already, but they should be.
Yes, they are, yeah.
They are, and this is a bit of an urban myth. I think the Tamar Bridge Act states that tolls could be collected as long as there are ongoing maintenance and operational costs that are not covered by government funding. So I said before, we've asked for government support in this respect, but the idea that the local authorities, both Cornwall Council and Plymouth City Council, can pick up the slack is not something we can consider at the moment. They're not in a financial position to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. The next question. Some people asking, why are 30 staff employed to run the Tamar Bridge? This seems a large number of staff. Can you provide a breakdown of how many staff are employed in each area in terms of admin and the booths and so on?
Yeah, I think we can provide a specific breakdown if that is needed in slower time. But I think I said earlier in the presentation, we're governed by the various agencies, the MCA, the Health and Safety Executive, to operate safe and compliant crossings. And we need to keep the public, the users of the bridge and the ferry, safe at all times. So we operate 24/7, again, 365 days a year. We have a number of toll booth operators, control room staff to manage traffic and various incidents that happen on a all too often basis. We have a customer service team, health and safety advisors, civil engineers to conduct essential maintenance work, and a recovery team for free breakdown recover, as well as the IT team to support all that goes on behind the scenes. I said it again in the presentation that I'm looking at the staffing levels, and I need to be able to satisfy myself that, you know, before we look at any increase, that we are cutting our cloth accordingly, and that our operational costs are no more than they need to be.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll just have a look at some of the questions. Just there are some comments that have come through, sort of linked to some of the responses that you've given. If I could just highlight.
Of course, I will try and answer all the questions as honestly as I can, because I'm sure there are lots of questions. Some of them will be familiar to me, but there's always a new question. So
there's some suggestions there as well. We had a question asking if we could provide a slide detailing the current costs of administering the tag, which was part of your presentation, but specifically understanding what the costs, why the costs have more than doubled to justify the doubling of the monthly administration fee. If you wouldn't mind, perhaps going back.
Yeah, we can certainly do that, but let's just talk about the actual rise. And it's you know, 80p to £2 is 150%, and on paper it looks like a massive increase, and I get that nobody wants to be paying more, but I need to cover my costs. I run as a business. I need to make sure that the income covers our costs, because there's nowhere else to turn, you know, short of skimping on some of the essential maintenance and you know, upgrades that we need to do. And therefore, you know, when I look at the cost of increasing the monthly administration fee, that's the last resort. You know, it's the one thing I think that is less painful than increasing the toll yet again. I don't want to do that, nor do I want to consider decreasing the discount on the tag, which, as I said, is the default for cheaper tolls for local people. In real terms, the increase from 80p to £1.20, you know, is covered in 2 or 3 crossings, isn't it? If you didn't have a tag, you'd be paying £3 a crossing, and so I think, and this is why we have a consultation. This is just my view, and it's one of the things I'm trying to do to balance the books. But you know, I want to hear what people think, but I think that's the least painful option of all the things that I could potentially do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. You mentioned postage costs earlier on, and suddenly there's a suggestion here suggesting that postage costs could perhaps be directed back to the customers themselves, or if you're local, you can even pop into the offices to collect your tag.
I think that's a great idea. It's what we're looking at. I've got to be honest, I don't know why we haven't looked at that before. It's a big number, isn't it, the postage cost? So we're certainly looking at reducing the postage. You know, people are busy, they have busy lives, and we hear from some of our users of the bridge and the ferry that they work from 9 to 5, and therefore our office is only open from 9 till 5. They don't have time to pop in. We would be happy to post it out to them, and we do often do that. But it may be that some of the people filling in the Q&A, sorry, the consultation, may feel that it would be reasonable for us to charge individuals for postage. So yeah, great idea. We're looking at it.
Thank you very much. Another question that's come in is in relation to the difference between having a tag and having an account, where you might have more than one tag. Someone says, have you looked at the option of either charging each tag rather than each account, or a smaller increase in the tag admin fee, which takes into account the increased admin income from tags, which share an account?
Yeah, we certainly are. So in parallel to the consultation, we're looking at all those costs, and it's been suggested that maybe we charge each tag holder an administration fee. That would generally hit businesses more than residents or users of the bridge who need to cross for a variety of things. So it's one of the things we're looking at. What it won't do, I think, is close that gap between, I think, 460 and 1.1 million. It doesn't generate a huge amount of additional income on initial examination, but it's one of the areas we're looking at.
Thank you very much. Another suggestion from somebody is, would the use of printable barcodes to attach to vehicle windscreens save on costs on postage rather than having a tag card?
That's something we can look into. I haven't heard of that one before, but my ambition is to move to open road tolling, and that would be, as I said earlier, ANPR technology, where it reads your number plate, so your account holder, it picks it up. So I don't want to necessarily invest in something that's going to cost more when we have a system in place, if over the horizon we've got a new system coming in. I really do want to push on this open road tolling. I think it would improve the experience and speed up traffic volumes across the bridge. But it's something we can look at, certainly. I think I understand the question, understand the technology, but I wouldn't want to invest in something that's going to cost us money we don't need to spend.
Thank you. Another question that we've had in is, why do staff get free crossings?
It's one of those things we're looking at, but I think it's one of our concessions. It's one of our benefits of working here. I know that some of the staff don't use their concessions. I personally don't, unless it's for work-related journeys. But again, it's something we're looking at. The cost of that, when I last looked, was again not a huge amount. I think it was between 10 and 12,000 pounds of lost revenue.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to pick up one or two?
Yeah, the presentation at the start stated that there were 19 million crossings. It is assumed that this includes traffic east and westbound. The agenda for the joint committee meeting this week states that 7.3 million eastbound tolled crossings. Sorry, I think I'm getting this right. That is a significant discrepancy. So is westbound untolled traffic almost 12 million? And if so, what can be done to reduce this discrepancy between tolled and untolled crossings?
So I'm going to have to phone a friend on that one, and hopefully Coral, who's sitting in an adjacent office, may be able to clarify. I don't have an answer. I think I understand the question, but I need to clarify the numbers, and I may have to get back to you on that.
Okay, and then a follow-up question from the same person. What is the total amount of identified savings to year end and next year?
So we have a joint committee meeting this coming Friday, and the figures will be shared with the joint committee at that public meeting. It would be wrong of me to share those numbers with all of you now on this public call before I've shared it with the joint committee, but they will be available for the public to view on Friday.
Thank you very much. So somebody asked earlier about whether you're holding any sort of consultation in Saltash itself.
Yeah, absolutely we are. I think we've got a date. Off the top of my head, I think it's the 25th of March. I'm waiting for confirmation on the venue. Again, hopefully somebody will come running into my office in a minute and say it's on this date this location. But yeah, we most definitely are. And I would encourage people to come along. I'm there for as long as it takes. I want to hear what people have to say, what their thoughts are, and hear from me about what I'm trying to do to cut our costs and generate income from other ways, which is fairly limited. So yeah, we are running one. Please come along. I look forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you.
What about charging more non-tag holders?
Yeah, that's something we've looked at in the past. We're fairly constrained by the Act in what we can and can't do. We're not allowed to discriminate against people on non-tag holders or non-locals, but it's certainly something we can take away and consider.
Thank you. Can you confirm that if you find any further savings in the existing budget, for example, postage costs moved onto customers, that the proposed admin fee increase will be reduced accordingly?
Yeah, I mean, I can't make that promise. What I can do is say that in looking at the budget, it's complex. We only have to look at what's happening at the moment in terms of cost of fuel, which is likely to reduce the number of people crossing the bridge and the ferry. I suspect that because fuel costs are so high, some people will choose to work from home, and that could have an impact on our income. And our income is always a forecast. We don't know for certain this is what we're going to get. We have to forecast traffic levels, and at the end of the day, I need to balance the budget. The things I'm doing to remove the costs within the organisation outside the tag will hopefully help us balance the books to a point. But we will need some additional income over the coming years into sort of 28, 29. I suspect that's what we're forecasting at the moment. Forecastings are they can be fickle, so I can't make a promise, but I'll do what I can.
Thank you. We've had a number of questions asking about the open road tolling, ANPR, and that being an obvious way to go. You touched on that in your presentation. Can you expand on that a little more in terms of costs and versus sort of staffing levels?
I can give you a little bit of information. So we're currently working on working up a business case to take to the joint committee. That is underway. The work is well underway. And once we've decided which of the options the joint committee wants to take forward as a recommendation, we've then got to decide how we fund it. Initial scoping suggests the cost of that scheme could run between 10, 11 to 15 million. And whilst that may save some staff in one area, it may add in another area. But I'm fairly confident that the business case will demonstrate that there's a net improvement in terms of the income generated from open road tolling, which does not mean an increase in tolls, I hasten to add, and does not necessarily mean an increase or reduction in your discount. The scheme will allow people to travel from west to east and east to west without encountering the tolls, which from time to time, I think you'll all agree, those that use the bridge on a regular basis can cause a bit of a backlog. And we're modelling through a number of options at the moment, and that's probably as much as I can say at the moment until the consultants come back to us with that developed business case and explain what the options are, and then we can take a proposal to the joint committee at some point in the late summer, early autumn.
Okay, thank you very much. Just picking up on some of the questions that were submitted before the webinar. there are quite a few questions specifically asking for details of the costs, but can we just confirm that we'll be sharing the recording of the webinar and the slides that you've presented alongside that as a PDF? I think that would be useful for people to be able to see that.
I think that's the plan, yeah.
Thank you. I think you've provided information about what the fee covers. I'm just reading through. We've got quite a lot of questions. The extent of additional funding generating ranges. So within the survey, there are a number of questions, and you touched on these earlier about the different options versus, rather than increasing the administration fee, that there are potentially other options, and you ran through those. Someone is asking, there's clearly a difference between an increase in the toll versus increasing or introducing a cost per tag. And so the question specifically is, how do you balance the results of the responses that you're going to receive from this consultation?
How do we balance the results? Well, we take this consultation seriously. We need to hear what people have to say, what they would prefer. I said in an earlier, as part of the presentation, that I can't sit here and do nothing. I can't go to the local authorities, to Cornwall and to Plymouth City Council, and say, I'm sorry, we've now run out of money. You need to pick up the slack, because they can't do it. They've got things, in their medium-term and long-term financial plans that they need to address. So I need to provide, deliver a balanced budget. So I have to take account of the consultation, see what people's views are, see if those that use the bridge for business, for pleasure, for because they have to visit the hospital, whether they prefer me to look at, in 2 years' time, 18 months' time, seeking an increase in tolls, whether they think I can balance the budget by reducing the discount, or whether they think this measure of increasing the monthly administration fee so that it covers the cost of the scheme and doesn't drain money from other parts of the business is the least painful option. But I do have to do something to make sure that we cover our costs. But I'm not going to do anything until I've satisfied the joint committee that I've looked at every conceivable way I can cut the costs of these operations, both the ferry and the bridge. And that's something we're going through at the moment. It's not a quick process, but by the time we finish the consultation and we report back to the joint committee at some point in the near future, I will have done the second round of deep dive into the budget and maybe making some more recommendations where we can cut our costs. I'd like to think I'm doing my bit in making sure that we run a tight organisation that does not spend money it does not need to, because it's public money at the end of the day.
Thank you. There's a question that's come in saying, what are you doing to decrease the cost of administering tags? It seems that there are too many in circulation and the whole tag project hasn't been thought through, meaning that too many people have them who don't really need them. For example, lots of tourists who come to Cornwall or to visit family think it's worthwhile to have one.
That's an interesting question, isn't it? Because that kind of argues that we should be doing something to dissuade those people who hang on to their tags, to hand them in and not get the concession. And of course, increasing the administration fee will be part of people's thought processes as to whether they keep the tag because actually it's only 80p a month, that's nothing, or whether actually I don't need it. And for the time, 2 or 3 times I cross a year, I might as well just pay the £3. So that's going to be part of individuals and businesses and alike deciding what's most cost effective for them. But I would argue increasing the administration fee to make it less attractive to hang on to your tag would be a benefit of these increases, proposed increases, I should add.
Thank you. Another question that's come in, which I think you touched on. Why are you so against making the fee to use the ferry higher than the fee to use the bridge? The ferries would seem to cost more than 4 times what the bridge does to run. Those who use such an expensive service should pay more towards it. It's only the history which makes both fees the same.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. I don't want to set Saltash against Tor Point. I understand why people who don't use the ferry would say that, but we've got a large community who rely on the ferry, a large workforce who rely on the ferry, not just for work, but for hospital visits and such like. And I just think, having that disparity and increasing the cost of the ferry to probably in the region of about £6 a crossing would mean that the ferries would cease to function. People would say, I'm not paying that. I choose to drive down around and use the bridge. Well, that's not good for the environment. It's not good for people's pockets because it's 17 miles from the Tor Point ferry to the bridge. And it's not good for a workforce who want to use the ferry to cycle and to walk to work, for instance, in Devonport. So that's not something we want to consider.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are a couple of questions that came in about the consultation arrangements. One was about the rationale for releasing content 24 hours early to key stakeholders. Philip, if you're happy, I'm happy to answer that question. It's best practice to inform key stakeholders of an upcoming consultation because key stakeholders represent either an interest group or a set of members or residents. The majority of our stakeholders were council, ward members, and MPs and other representatives for the local area. And as I said, it's best practice to inform those individuals that a consultation is coming and to share the material so that they're in a position to review that information and be ready to answer questions when their constituents or those people they represent come to them asking for questions. So hopefully that answers that particular question. And in relation to the survey, someone has asked, why is the full postcode required when it's ostensibly an anonymous survey? It is an anonymous survey. We can't tell who you are just from your full postcode. You'll appreciate that the first part of a postcode covers a very wide area. One of the reasons why we capture that information is because it helps us to understand how effective our communications were in making people aware of the consultation. By capturing that very specific information, we are able to see where we managed to deliver our communications effectively and perhaps those areas that we weren't, so that in the future we could learn from that and target communications a little more effectively. Philip, I don't know if you want to add anything to either of those points that I made.
No, I think you've covered that fine. I mean, we're just trying to be transparent and give as many people as possible the opportunity to engage with us and to feed into the consultation. I think this is important. It's important we hear what people have to say. Every time I've done a consultation, there are a number of nuggets in there that we haven't thought about, and that's why we engage with the people some of whom have been using these ferries and bridges for a long time. One question I don't know whether the questions have dried up. Maybe that's a good thing, or maybe people are just storing it up for another time. But one question I get asked quite a lot is about the levels of pay of those members of staff that are employed by the Tamar crossings, and we align ourselves to the local authority. So our salaries, our cost of living increase, and salaries do increase each year, as with every other business and public service, but they're determined by the national local government body, and we have no input into that at all. And another one that may have appeared in the Mythbusters, nor do we offer our any members of staff a bonus. I just thought I'd add that while I had the time.
Thank you. That's useful. That does pick up a couple of the questions that we had submitted through the webinar application form. Just picking up on that, somebody specifically asked about employing staff. I think we've covered that question already in terms of the number of people employed, and I think, Philip, you said you could provide some clarity around those numbers if needed.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Okay, sorry to keep you. Yeah, go for it.
Why the government? I think you did cover this a little bit in your presentation, Philip, but there are a number of questions asking why the government is not making this a free crossing.
I can't speak on behalf of the government. So I think you know, the crossings themselves have operated for a number of years successfully. We will continue to seek some additional funding from government, whether that's the ongoing revenue support, whether it's capital support for some of our future investments. But I can't speak on behalf of the government.
Okay, thank you. I think just going through the questions that we've had, the majority of the ones that were submitted prior to the webinar when people completed the form that we've touched on. So we're just looking at the messages that are coming up on the screen. So looking at the question, so talking about, again, let's go referring back to members of staff getting free crossing. Someone's interested to know how much that actually costs per year. Don't know if you have that information available.
I think I did. I think I gave a figure around 10 or 12,000. I think it's no more than that. As I say, not all the staff use the concession. You know, I would say that some of our staff, as part of their terms and conditions of service, have that as a benefit. It's not an overly generous benefit, I believe, but it costs the business in lost revenue around between £12,000 and £13,000.
Okay, thank you. You've touched on this already, Philip, but somebody has asked about, you can easily see where the residents from the PL12 postcode are in terms of when they provide the information for their account. You could at least see to give them a better discount or free. I know that you touched on that earlier, but whether you just want to go over that again.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Sorry, apologies.
Is it? Sorry, are they saying that because we've identified the postcode through the consultation, we're able to identify local residents? Was that?
No, I took it to mean that people who apply for a tag, you could easily see people who've applied for a tag are from the PL12 postcode. So that should allow you to be able to give them a better discount or free things.
I hear what they say, but they've applied for a tag, and the tag gives them a considerable discount. They're still paying £1.50. I get that. Nobody wants to pay for the crossing, but £1.50 is better than the £3, and it's been acknowledged that in terms of offering locals a better deal, the tag is the system through which we deliver that. In the future, when we remove the tags and we hopefully move to open road tolling, then you'll still have an account, and all being well with the finances, you'll still be able to have a discount if you have an account with us.
Okay, thank you very much. We're coming close to the end of the session now. There's just a question here, somebody asking what will happen if the money runs out. You mentioned about having the reserve until about the 28-29 budget year.
So under the current Act, the local authorities, the parent authorities are required to pick up any deficit. But I'm hoping we don't get to that point. It's difficult. There are risks to this business. One of the risks is that more people use public transport, which is great for the environment, great for your pocket, but actually it means we lose income. The other risk is what we're seeing at the moment, fewer people traveling because of the cost of fuel and deciding to work from home for 2 days a week instead of 1 day a week or more, and that will impact on our income. I've made it quite clear. I've got to run a business. I've got to generate sufficient income to cover our costs. I am looking at how we reduce those costs and doing all I can, but keeping those crossings safe, reliable, and compliant. And in terms of generating income, I'm looking at applying what I think is the least painful option to generate a little bit more income, so that at least when we look at our accounts, we can say we provide a service and we cover the cost of that service through the various income generation. In this case, we're talking about the Tag Administration Fee. And I would just reiterate, I can't do nothing because there is no provision in either local authority's MTFP to give any revenue support to the crossings for the next 2, 3, 4 years. And therefore, the options I have immediately are to reduce the discount on the tag, and then in slower time, because these things are never quick, apply to government for another increase in tolls. And I think, I obviously can't see the people on this webinar, but I'm pretty sure if I asked for a show of hands of who wanted to do that, nobody would put their hand up. I am trying to do what is best for residents, and keep these crossings moving and keep them safe and keep them compliant.
Thank you. I think this might end up being the final question for this evening, but somebody's asked, why don't you reduce the geographic area for tags?
There's no geographic area. Are they saying that we just have it within a local pocket? I'm not sure what the question is.
I think the suggestion...
Anybody can have a tag at the moment.
Yes, I think it's a suggestion that perhaps tags are limited to a specific geographic area.
Yeah.
And I guess the question on the back of that is, would you consider that?
I consider anything at the moment. Nothing is off the table. That's why we're having the consultation.
Okay,
thank
you. There's just one or two more questions that have been submitted. We'll quickly say there's more for information. Are you aware that the cost for the bridge and ferry used to be different up to 1997? Someone else is suggesting that this is the law of diminishing returns, that less people will use the bridge and possibly use public transport.
And how much pressure is being put on MPs and local councillors to push for government change? These are more statements, I think, than questions, but they're the last few that have come in.
I think it's fair to say that the MPs are very engaged, very supportive. They have their constituents at heart. They want to do what's right, and they don't want costs to rise unnecessarily. But it's fair to say that all the 3 MPs I've been dealing with are very supportive and very engaged. That was one part of the question, and I forgot what the other bit was. Sorry.
No, I think that the other bit was that perhaps less people would use the bridge. And
it's a worry. It is a worry. You're absolutely right, and I mentioned it. As more and more people perhaps choose to use public transport, as public transport improves, then you work out what's right for you and your family or your business, and what you need to do, and all the factors come into that. Whether you decide to catch the train from Saltash to Plymouth or the bus, these are all things that you're going to weigh up, in terms of looking at what's best for you to manage your finances. I get that, and it is a worry for me that we will have fewer people using the bridge or the ferry, because that will impact on our income into the future.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, everybody who joined the webinar this evening. If there are questions that we haven't managed to get through, or people submit things afterwards, we will look to collate and to respond to any other questions, particularly those that came in later this afternoon. But thank you all very much for your time and your input. And this session has been recorded, so we will make that available in due course via the website.
Yes. Thank you very much, Philip.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.